Hello everyone, it's Kay here. I was filming along quite nicely, trying to show you how to do this stack the deck simple album, and what I inadvertently did was knock the tripod and everything off the table. So that said, I'm going to have to try and go back over what I've done here so as not to repeat it, because it is quite a bit of work. So what you're going to need for this, and it is the album that I showed previously, the little Stack the Deck album that I said I would come back and do a tutorial for, because it uses the most simple and straightforward stack the deck hinge system that I have ever encountered. So it's an ideal video for someone who is just starting out on the album journey. So what you need very quickly is some chipboard, some good quality card, or lesser quality if you're going to use a good quality designer paper to cover. It is entirely up to you. You can use lesser quality things for albums, but it does show in the finish, sadly. But you know, at the end of the day, for the first run and for the first practice, use whatever you've got to hand. Now the chipboard I've used isn't anything special. You can use card, you can use whatever you like. This is quite a standardized thickness, I would say, and if I have a little look for you with the ruler, I might just, well, it is actually about 1.5 mil in thickness, we'll say, for the sake of arguments, but whatever you have to hand works. Now what you need for the cover is 6 inches by 4 inches twice. That's 6 inches by 4 inches, and you need 1 3/4 inches by 6 inches for your spine. And that is approximately what I've got here, 6 by 4. So the 4 is this way, the 6 is this way, and this then is my spine. You then get an A4 sheet of card, which this sits on very nicely. This, by the way, is actually not my idea. It's from the wonderful Scrapbooking Marie, who is Swedish and does a lot of her work using subtitles, and this is where I found this album and indeed this system. So briefly, to get your cover together, you lay down your chipboard within the center of your A4 card, line it all up together, and just using a score tool, score around the top and the bottom. And what this actually does, hold on, I need to go out a little bit, sorry. If you score to the top and score to the bottom whilst it's sat on the A4 piece of card, then that gives you guidelines to actually lay down your chipboard to get it straight and not to make any mistakes with that. You then need a double piece of the chipboard that you've utilised for your cover, and once you use whatever glue or adhesive that you want to use, you place that on the first edge of your first piece of chipboard, the first wide piece of the cover, and you butt your spine piece right up next to it, which affords you this space between the pages each time. So when you've got all 3 pieces laid down, it's 6 by 4, 6 by 1 3/4, 6 by 4. That is your cover for your album. You then, using quite a wide ball tool, you then score down between the space, you score around the whole of the album, and then you gently tease your cardstock up over the edge. Using a ruler, you can then make sure that it is really close up to that edge, and that way you will get a really clean finish on your edges there like this, which is really quite important. You then, once you've got that anchored and in the place that you want it to be, gently bounce up your edges, gently, allowing the fibres to stretch. If that gap isn't wide enough, you are going to overstretch your paper and you will cause your paper to tear. So of all the things that you take care of, pay particular attention to that particular area, because what you want when it's all folded up is to have something that will close comfortably before you put anything else into the inside of your album. I have mitered corners, not very successfully because I was rushing to keep the video a little bit shorter, and I've also done a tiny little bit of notching in the center panel there to just afford less bulk and keep it closing comfortably. If you look at the outside here, it's all done really nicely and folded up, and you've got really quite sharp edges there, which is what you need to achieve. What you then do is get a piece of card that will not entirely fill that center gap. You don't want it edge to edge, but you do want it to be virtually in the center of the pad with of the spine with a border. If I can find my ruler, which I've put down somewhere. Oh, here it is, sorry. What you do, what I've used here is a piece of card that's 9 3/4 by 5 3/4, and that will just then fit into the center here. I've already put my red tape on, and I've already scored, having placed the card where I want it to be, so that I can line up and get this in the center and still keep the integrity of my spine part of the album. Now I've used red tape here, which I've used right the way through, and I've also used some wet glue. In my case it's Yoo-hoo, and it just does help to give a little bit of extra anchorage to your card and just lets it all lie down really well. So I'm just going to now place that. You see where I've scored, hopefully, just roughly, and I want to put that down. Oops. Fairly centrally, and just let that fall. Now, because I was rushing, you will see that I've got raw corners here, but I'm planning to put some corners in place which will in effect hide that. It's because I cut too close to the corner and didn't leave enough space there to fold my corners in. But at this stage it is not the end of the world, so if you do the same thing, don't think you've ruined it, because you haven't. Now I'm going to lay my ruler down again, and with that same ball tool I am gently reforming the gap in the spine, just mushing up those fibres a little bit, so that when I lift up the cover again and fold it, none of this is going to give me any problems. And again, I am just bouncing up one side of the cover and bouncing up the other side of the cover. So again, you end up with that really nice finish, like so. we can put that aside, and now we go on to the stack the system bit of the album, which is what will put your pages into place. Now this is really straightforward, and this is why I felt it would be ideal to share it with you. You have 3 pieces of card here, and they are essentially about, I don't know, ½ an inch or so less than the other. I'm going to give you the sizes now, so just bear with me. One sheet needs to be 5½ inches in depth and 9¼ inches in length. Okay, I'm hoping you're seeing this. So that's the 5 by 9¼ Let's just check that out again. No, 5½, sorry. 5½ by 9¼ Your second page needs to be 5½ by 8¾ Your third page needs to be 5½ by 8¼ And these are soon to be the pages of your album. What you do is take each piece to your scoreboard and you score at 4 inches. Turn your card totally around and score at 4 inches, which gives you this centre aisle of approximately 1¼ inches. You then score and burnish. The second piece of card you put back on your scoreboard and you score at 4 inches, a complete turn, and you score at 4 inches, burnish and fold, like so. And your third piece you score at 4 inches, you turn and you score at 4 inches. Now I've already laid down my adhesive on the back to save a bit of time. So essentially each of the pages are the same width, but in length they are staggered, which is how you want them to be. Now in the traditional sense, the stack the deck would be those same spaces as we've got on our pages, if you can see where I'm holding them here. But you would anchor that into the spine and then place your pages in place, and this is what makes this so very special. Your pages are already where you need them to be. So once they're anchored into your journal or album, they are then ready to decorate straight away. So it really is a great place for someone who hasn't done albums before but is longing to have a go. This is probably the best place to start, because you don't have to worry about adding pages and getting them all where they need to be. You just lay this onto your spine. I've overlapped my red tape here, but you just lay this into your spine, right into the middle. Now I like to stand up my pages so that I can line them up before I actually set them into place. So I've just lined this up so it is in the middle of the previous spine, like so, and I'm just pressing that down, so when the two come together you've got 2 pieces and 4 pages of your album, and it works as long as you line it all up carefully. I mean, I'm rushing like crazy here, but as long as you line them up very carefully, this system will not let you down. This is the narrow one, so I'm again going to peel off my red tape backing, like so, I am going to stand up the previous 2 pages, and I am going to line up in the middle that page as best I can. I think I've moved it a little tad there. Oh, come on. Okay. And there are the 3 pages all locked together. And that is stacking the deck, but with your pages actually on the album and in the album ready to go. I've also, on the back of the largest of the gaps, put more red tape like so. Oops. I will lay this down now with my Yoo-hoo in the centre, because I do want it to last, and you do need this to be anchored as firmly as you possibly can, because this is the bit that will take all the trouble when someone is opening and closing the album. Now you do need to, I'm going to lay my spine down that way and hold my pages like that, and I am aiming for not only the centre of the back but also the centre of the length of the page that way, to make sure that it is in the right place. I've just got a little bit of wiggle room courtesy of the Yoo-hoo, and if you then really press that centerpiece down, you'll see I've got a little bit of a frame there and a little bit of a frame there, and I'm just going to use my big scoring tool and just press that down and into the center. Then bring my pages up and fold them into one another like so and like so, and make sure I'm just pressing this down now with the back of my thumb. Then I'm going to pull the pages back one by one like so, and just crease in between again and again, and just make sure that it is really firmly anchored. And there is your album ready to decorate, and that really is all you have to do. That is it in a nutshell. If you want your pages, these are a little bit proud of the album, and I don't know quite why that's happened. I've probably rushed and not cut it quite the way it's supposed to be, so I do apologise. What you could, I mean, it will sit beautifully like that, but you do have to put your closure on, and you would put your closure on at this point before you start applying DSP, your designer paper and your embellishments into the album. I think because I think what you need to do is trim perhaps a little bit off the length of the pages. I did make this first one, as you can see, considerably larger than the one that I've shown you today from Marie's measurements. It's Marie's Scrapbooking with me. Marie's Scrapbooking, if you want to check out the original video. The other thing to do, of course, is that you could make your cover that little bit bigger, and instead of doing 6 inches by 4, do 6 inches by 4.5, and that would give you a better coverage for the pages. I hope this makes sense. I have waffled on and I have rushed it, and dropping the tripod halfway through the first one hasn't really done me any favours, but I did want to get it out there. So I hope in principle you understand what you need to do this particular album. It is such a lovely thing to do. And if I just show you this one again, this is the first one I did, and you can see the stacking system here in the centre. And I did make the pages wider by some ½ an inch just to make sure that I had room to decorate. This time I've made them slightly smaller, but I will go on and trim down my pages so it's not lost. I hope that's helpful. If there are any questions, please don't hesitate, message me or leave word under the video, and I will try and answer as best I can any queries. Thank you for your time. Happy crafting, everyone. Bye bye for now.